Lab talks here in Belgrade. It's the second session and it is one on our AI Lab journey. And what journey was it actually for us? We are 13 different European organizations working together really in a close European network on developing European projects, on creating also new projects, and of course presenting many programs through the last 3.5 years, and it was really an exciting journey for all of us to collaborate and to work together. You will actually have the chance today to get a quite detailed look into what we did, what we achieved together, and also what exciting programs were realized, even though we had to, of course, cope with some little challenges like the pandemic, but nonetheless, we had fantastic artists working with us, and it was really an excitement. My name is Veronika, and I'm moderating today's session also because at Electronica, and I'm working since 10 years now with Electronica, we actually started these collaborations. We invited also the other organizations you will see on stage today to join this project. And Electronica is, if you don't know the institution, a cultural organization which was founded more than 40 years in Linz in Austria along the Danube. And we're working since ever on this nexus of art, science, technology, and society. And mostly we do this really to bring artists and scientists together to also stimulate an exchange, a working relationship between them, and try to facilitate really an active discourse between arts and science. Because we are convinced really that artists are fantastic catalysts also of making processes which are maybe hidden or complex visible, making us also aware and understand of these processes, and of course also bring this to broad audiences. And this is exactly what we've also seen in the European Artificial Intelligence Lab over the course of the last years, in particular in the work and also discussion on what is artificial intelligence, where should it also develop to. This was a discourse which was held with many of our partners. We all know, of course, that the latest developments, in particular in artificial intelligence, are really, truly astonishing. And we also read every day in the newspaper that the advancements are driven by the increased economic and also scientific power which is invested in them. But artificial intelligence is really difficult to understand, and many of our organizations really work also in educational activities. So we know from our daily work that it is quite challenging also to make people aware of what artificial intelligence is and what, how it works. So this is one big part, as well as trying to shed light on the very holistic effects and impacts of artificial intelligence, and in particular the ecological, also the political, the societal and the ethical questions associated with artificial intelligence. Again, we are not doing this alone. We are doing this in a fantastic collaboration with so many other partners all across Europe, and it is my huge pleasure actually to have them quite all represented today with us here in Belgrade. We have already enjoyed the last 2 days here, also wrapping up the project and thinking about the future and maybe some further projects. And I would say let's actually speak, or let's invite them to speak and give us an insight into their work and also their collaboration with artists and their audiences during the last years. First, I would actually already travel to France and to Lea. Please come on stage. Welcome, Lea, please. You have here also a little ticker. So please give us a bit of a background information on Hexagone, and this is the wrong presentation.
Yes. It's the fifth one. Okay, so My name is Léa Deshusses. I'm working at Hexagone. So Hexagone is one partner of the EILA project. Hexagone is a theater based in Grenoble, France. Grenoble is a city, a small city in the Alps, so surrounded by the mountains. The theater presents shows and performances on a stage, like a 500-seat theater, presenting circus, dance, music, theater. And it has this specificity to have a research activity. Because Grenoble, you have to know that Grenoble is a scientific city. It has one of the biggest research centers in France called CEA. And there is one center based in Grenoble gathering 6,000 researchers working especially on nanotechnologies and new technologies in general. But we have also, of course, other research centers and a huge university. And the director of Hexagone thought it would be pretty interesting to cross the disciplines and to make artists work together with scientists and see what comes out. And that's how Atelier art+science has been created in 2007 and is part of Hexagone the theater. So Atelier art+science is a common research platform between this CA research center and the theater. And we led more than 50 art and science residencies. So that's our core mission at Atelier art+science. So what is a residency? It's when you bring together scientists and artists together for a period it goes from months to some years until it leads to an outcome. It can be very different. It can be when it's a successful performance on the stage of Hexagone, but it can be also a smaller performance or just an art installation or a video installation. So we are mostly working with artists from the performing arts. But what is also Hexagone doing and Atelier art+science is a biennale, an art and science biennale that we call Experimenta. So it's every 2 years. Last edition was in 2020. And it has 3 components. So one component is the shows. So during 10 days, we are presenting art and science show on the stage of the Hexagone, but also on the stage of theaters that are partners of the event. There is one component which is the exhibition. So we showed about like 34 artworks during 3 days. And so it's artworks that are results of collaboration between artists and scientists with the specificity that we are asking the artists to be present during the whole fair. It's a way to be in touch directly with the audience, but also with professionals, and to work about this unusual collaboration. So most of the time we ask also to the researcher to be alongside the artists. And the third component is the forum, so a series of roundtables on topics that are raised by the artworks that we have at the exhibition. So that's why we always invite an artist to each roundtable. So the idea is really to create bridges between those 3 components. So that was for Hexagone. I have the, yes. So we are very happy to be here, to be involved in this EILA project, because it's a topic that artists are dealing with since few years now. Less in the performing arts than in visual arts, but still we have some. And we decided to set up a residency with Rocío Berenguer. It's a Spanish choreographer and writer based in France, and she made several shows already based on AI, and worked with several scientists on this topic, so we thought she would be very relevant for this one. And she came with this project called G5, It's a dialogue between species that have to negotiate their coexistence on Earth, so territories, resources, and she made it as if it was a live television debate, and where all the species had to communicate together. So it was mineral, vegetal, animal, human, and machine, and for them to be able to understand each other, she wanted to use AI as a tool, as a translation bridge between all those different signals from each species, with the difficulty of how do you find the right signal to be understood by all the others, and how do you avoid to be too much anthropocentric. So what was quite interesting in this residency is that she worked, of course, with scientific in AI, but she associated also anthropologist, philosopher, biologist, geophysicist, astrophysicist. So it was what I call a complete residency, because it was not only hard science, but also and technology, but also humanities. So it ended up on the stage of Hexagone. So far, it's very successful. But also installations at Experimenta and a conference during the forum of Experimenta. And she also had like some, she intervened in other venues of the project. So this was for one of our main projects, but of course what is also important for us and what brings us the project, the ILA project, is all those potential partnerships, because we are 13 partners, and it's very important to let the artists circulate between our venues. So Experimenta was for us the opportunity to welcome the artists supported by our partners. So we showed at Experimenta, so among the 30 artworks, we had 10 coming from our partners. And presented during the whole week at the exhibition, but also participating at the conferences. We made other activities, because what is also very important in the project is how do we allow different audiences to have access to this topic, and that's what I call here outreach activities. It means how the theater, we worked with scholars, universities, elders association, to give them access to these artists dealing with AI, and bring also the debate and those questions to a broader audience. So we had another roundtables, performances, and training programs, and workshops. So it was also how to allow artists to have a broader access to this technology. So we organized like sessions of 3 days where scientists and artists could debate and discuss, and where the scientists really were here for the transmission of their knowledge. So I don't know if I go further into this.
Maybe a sentence to wrap up.
But what we so we learned a lot. But what also this AILA project allows us is a project that will continue beyond this project, because we made some partnerships with institutions that want to continue to work on this topic with us. So we will continue to work on this topic, and we will, I hope, continue to work with some of the partners, even if the project ends very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. We actually had the pleasure back at the beginning of 2020 to visit Grenoble when they did the festival, and the way the mediation really worked, also the way they engaged artists in direct mediation of the topics, and of course the audience in discussions was really fantastic. And again, this is really a strong focus of all our work, also of the next presenter of the Onassis Cultural Center. And Heracles, please come on stage. Welcome.
Thank you, Veronika.
Yeah, it works. And you have the pointer here. Yeah.
Right. So I'm Heracles Papatheodorou. I am coordinator of digital and innovation, and that's also interesting because we currently are in what is essentially a museum of innovation. It's not only about technology. We also tend to forget that the relationship between art and science is not a new thing. Ever since the concept of a gallery was conceived, it was also, technology was always displayed in the context of art, because art has this unique opportunity to speak about things, and to speak about things that matter, which are how we live, which is how we govern and how we go through our daily lives. And this is what we also try to do at the Onassis Foundation and at Onassis Stegi. Onassis Stegi is the venue of the Onassis Foundation in Athens, Greece. We used to focus on stage performances, but of course contemporary culture and what we care about, which is how our lives are shaped, has been on our focus. I'm not sure if the video here plays. So the goal of Onassis Foundation is to speak about those things that matter, and specifically in the context of AI Lab, what we wanted to unpack is those intricate forces between the shaping of those technologies. And that also connects to our mission, which is speaking about culture and speaking about education. And through this network, we had this unique opportunity to have a holistic approach and start from the educational activities, go through working with artists, through residency programs to develop new works, and eventually present those kind of works to the greater audience. One of these examples, and I'll quickly go through and focus a little bit more on the public programs, were the Archives in Transit. This was an educational program for schools and educators as disseminators that talks about AI and breaks it down to its basics, which is databases, discriminators, which is decisions and outlooks on these datasets, and eventually outcomes, which we use to interpret the world. And we started with archival material from the Onassis library, which is a humanistic library dating to the first Greek books, and the Kavaf archive and other open archives, and therefore we created essentially a toolkit that guides educators on how to use archival material for creative purposes, how to deal with content licenses, what to use, and how to further enable others to reuse their output, and eventually unpack those technologies that consist of AI. And through the residencies, I'll just focus on two walks. The one by Frederick de Wilde, which talks about satellites orbiting the Earth, searching for rare materials, and how these rare materials are eventually used in the devices we carry in our everyday lives. And the other one by Stephanie Hanke and Maurer, which talks about and maps 100 different technologies that are used to interpret and study eventually the human body through AI during the times of the pandemic. And I'll put a quick video right after this. This is UNAI is the festival that we had the chance to do this very summer, let's say at the end of the pandemic, when people were again allowed and it was possible to do public events outside. It consists of a physical exhibition of 25 works in a public space in Athens, which is called Πεδίο του Άρεως. and a series of online discursive events, which, of course, you can also see online right now. Not sure this should happen, but I'll quickly skip through. Could we play the video here?
Ο αλγόριθμος ξέρει τα μυστικά σου. Πού είναι ο εξαφανισμένος ρινόκερος του Βορρά? Έλα στο πεδίο του Άρεως, στην έκθεση UNAI. Από 24 Ιουνίου, στον τεχνητά φυσικό χώρο του πάρκου. Μία παραγωγή της στέγης του Ιδρύματος Onassis. Ο αλγόριθμος ξέρει τα μυστικά σου. Πού είναι ο εξαφανισμένος ρινόκερος του Βορρά?
Thankfully, technology always manages to break on its own, but we always need artists to further break it down. And this is particularly important because such technologies that we carry every day in our lives tend to be invisible, and that was the core message of the exhibition, that AI is not something that will come in the future. It's something that is already here. We carry interfaces that speak with AI in our pockets, and it governs how we walk in the city, how we experience the public space, how we experience democracy, and eventually how we decide to do things. And all these works in the exhibition try to unpack these realities in several ways. The one was about how we see AI, the second one is about how AI sees us, and of course speaking in more detail about surveillance, and the third part of the exhibition was about how artificial intelligence can substitute the natural environment or augment it in different ways. And very quickly, I'll go through some highlight works, perhaps, from the exhibition. Of course, you can also see some of the discursive programs here. So, at the very beginning of the exhibition, we started asking the audience to dream about, because it was quite of a dreamy environment to be in an exhibition after so many months, really. And that is also the part that breaks down AI with a very known work from Mousson Zaraviv into databases, discriminators specifically, because the methodology for phrenology, which this work discusses, was widely used to discriminate in the dark history of Europe. The opportunity of the park was that we were able to take some works out of their original white book context and put them right into nature, which eventually they speak for. A great challenge was, again, how to discuss with the audience that already visits the park and actually makes use of the park, and try not to come against the people that already in the park. And that in some cases meant that we had people walking on the exhibits themselves, which was designed as such. This particular one talks about predictive policing, how algorithms eventually, even if we don't see them from ground level, govern our lives from afar. Another work, a live one, about data in the city and how they can be created into poetic interpretations of everyday life. And of course, when speaking about the past, it is often interesting to imagine how it can be interpreted in different ways. So in this work by Egor Kraft, we have the hallucinations of a generative AI system reinterpreting figures from ancient sculptures. or rethinking aquatic creatures inside the aquatic areas of the park.
Maybe come to me?
Yes. And overall, you can still see several of the works online. There is still an ongoing part of the exhibition online with several works design assets, and of course the documentary and documentation of the entire exhibition. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Definitely really an outstanding example of also expanding cultural activities, expanding also exhibitions beyond the classical halls of museums and galleries, which is definitely one of the big objectives also of the European Artificial Intelligence Lab, which is co-funded really also by the Creative Europe program of the European Commission, and which has a specific objective also of audience development, so really trying to reach audiences beyond the usual halls and of course scope and reaches of cultural organizations, and going into public spaces is of course a fantastic way to do so. Also a way which actually is done by the next presenter, not necessarily in a park, more in the form or in front of a castle in Denmark. I would actually ask our colleagues from Culture Yard to come on stage. Barbara, welcome. And please give us some insights into your programs.
I will. Oh, do we have a... Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I need to find out. Well, my name is Barbara. I'm from Denmark, where we have a local culture center called the Culture Yard. Actually, it consists of 2 houses, 2 buildings. One, the Culture Yard itself, is inside the old shipyard buildings, renewed with new architecture around it. And then there's another old building where we have different sorts of activities. And then behind us, we also have some huge halls where this is the castle Veronika was talking about. And on the other side, you see Sweden. We're only 4 kilometers from Sweden. And then we also have the big halls where we have been experimenting actually with some of these things within the AI lab project. Well, what's the point in a local-based culture center like us to get into this kind of project? For us, it's quite obvious because we work with a lot of daily activities like concerts, children's performances, and art classes for children, etc., etc. But we also have this corner of our activities where we go deeply into art and progress, curiosity, looking out widely in the world, and here we tend to focus of the field of art and technology and science, and this project then even gives us a chance to go even deeper into the specific area of artificial intelligence. And for us who are working with a certain focus on stage performance, this has been really exciting, I must say. I'll go a little further. This is the more local activities you see here. We have, for 10 years, just as long time as we existed as a culture center, we had worked with a brand we call Click, which has been for 10 years a festival, international festival in the field of art, science, and technology. but it's also a brand for activities and workshops stuff during the year. And it has indeed become even more now because the festival format changed because of the COVID situation. But in the framework of CLIC, we had the opportunity to get into these really exciting productions connected to AI, both to try to investigate what is AI, what can it be used for within the art field, and especially within the framework of performing arts in Denmark. But also to change the whole setup of the art scene, to try to allow experiments to grow, to be able to work together in new ways, and to let young artists make experiments with scientists. I will go a little further here. We have some young artists making an AI art piece with AI inside these lights reacting on the humans moving around them in a quite poetic way. And from talk sessions, and this is from actually a seminar where, now that we were earlier talking about audiences, also in this case it also gave us a chance not only to work with the local audience and the kids, but also to work to see the whole performing art scene as a sort of small audience we like to influence with seminars and experience. Oh, what have we here? This is actually an AI installation. You can't see it. It looks like a doctor's place in the 50s, but you can have an AI consultation here. So this is from one example of an artwork where we were actually able to have an open call where we could put together some different scientists working with AI technologies and some performing artists. And we had time to let them collaborate and create art pieces, and we could give them room, and we could let them perform at our festival, and we could tour them. So this was a great opportunity to them to work in a new way, and this piece is called Memory Mechanics, and uses an AI to collect memories from various target groups, and then it's performed in an installation where you can also go and interact with these various memories. I'll run through all this. This is from the installation also. I think time is running, right? So I better, yeah. I just want to show you a few, yeah. This is from a larger scale production that we worked on for 3 years in this whole project period, trying to make one show both using and telling inside the story about the role of an AI, which was really difficult. It was both difficult to, this is actually a live stage performance where the AI plays an active role, and it, yeah, well, I can't in short sentences tell you how complicated it was to have this AI alive on the stage, but super fun. Yeah, I guess I should stop, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, well.
Thank you. Please give it applause. Thank you so much. I really strongly recommend actually looking also into the video documentations of the performance program did by Culture Yard. I think it's an outstanding example, and what they did during the last editions as well, how performances can, of course, be also mixed with using technologies, and also how performances are maybe pushing a bit our understanding of technologies and how we interact with technologies. This is definitely something which I was lucky enough to discover personally in Helsingør, but it is for sure also something you will see within the documentations. I think that's the beauty, to be honest, also of such a consortium working with so many partners, where you have partners which are focused very much on performance programs. We have a couple of also partners who focused on theater programs, but of course also many who, like us, Electronica, focused a lot on exhibitions and mediation programs. And one of these partners is Laboral, and I would ask Patricia to come on stage from the very last row back. Super. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
The stage is yours.
Thanks, Veronika, and thanks everyone for being here tonight, today. My name is Patricia Villaneuva, and I come from Laboral, an art center in the north of Spain. Yeah, that's Laboral. It's a huge building. It's actually the biggest building in Spain. Yeah, that's the main complex. It was built in the 50s during dictatorship, and it was resignified through culture. Laboral, the art center, is just one part of the whole building. We also have a music school, drama school, university, and also we have a technology part, because the project is a strategy of the government of Asturias to have a future in a post-industrial region, and trying to work with technology, innovation, and creativity. So this is the art center. As you can see, we are in a huge industrial space. And when we started with AI Lab, we work also on exhibitions and mediation programs mainly. We decided that the first cycle of activities would be very much focused on basic concepts around artificial intelligence. And this was also because Laboral is in a very small region. We're not in Madrid or Barcelona. We realized that most of the people would not really know what artificial intelligence implied, even if it was on the newspapers or TV programs. So our main goal was to break down the walls and the myths around artificial intelligence. So I'm going to show you some images of the exhibitions. And this was addressed to the general public. You can check on our YouTube channel all the documentation and interviews with the curators if you want to go deeper into the topic. But also we were very much interested into getting to more audiences, like school students. So we had like this visit workshop program during the whole exhibition that dealt with the concepts in guided visit, but also in practical activities. Also, we try to reach the communities around Laboral, and we do it through this format, this winter lab that we host almost every year. And there we have theoretical and practical activities, in this case, around artificial intelligence and art. Here, we invite artists, scientists, technologists, activists, citizens in general, and we put them to dialogue to get a more critical and creative point of view about technology and its impacts. So these are some of the workshops. I'm not going to stop into them. These were the meetings. And the second exhibition, the second cycle for AI Lab, we focus into a much more a specific topic. which is Art, Artificial Intelligence and Neuroscience. This title, When the Butterflies of the Soul Flutter Their Wings, comes from scientific Ramon y Cajal, Spanish scientific who studied the brain, and he thought, well, he said that the neurons were the most beautiful cells in the world, the butterflies of the soul, and these neurons will help us to understand the mysteries of the brain. So this was our inspiring sentence to start thinking about the exhibition. The main idea was to explore the connections between the artificial intelligence and the human intelligence, and how scientists were working, and also artists, to explore those two topics. Again, some pictures of the exhibition. You can also find documentation. But then, and I'm going to say the word COVID came, and to keep engaged with our audiences, especially schools, we had to move into the virtual, but we decided to move also the exhibition, which was a bit hard, because as you may imagine, artworks cannot be experienced in the same way through the website. But we made this effort together with the artists and the curators, and for about 6 months, we were having virtual exhibitions, virtual guided tours with the schools, which was the only way in we could reach them, to give them the opportunity, and to us still have the contact with them. Again, we repeat the Winter Lab. In this case, everything was virtual, and we collaborate with different groups of the university from the scientific point of view. And in the end, well, this is all perfectly documented, as this was already in restriction times. And the last activity, we decided to go into a more general topic. Asturias is a very political region, and we knew that dealing with neuroscience was something a bit difficult for the general public. So we decided to focus the last activity into democracy and artificial intelligence, which was something that really raised the interest of the communities around Laboral very, very fast. And it also, it gave us a chance to balance a bit, on the one hand, the more complex or topics that open fields to everyone, to scientists and to artists, such as the neuroscience and artificial intelligence, and topics that also help us to keep connected to the communities that we have around the Art Center.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, I think one of the recurring themes you definitely hear, and you will also hear until the very end, is of course how to make AI accessible and mediate the stories, and also the scientific progress and scientific developments behind. In the case of Laboral, they really developed a fantastic online and virtual way to mediate this. This is part of our daily job, also to make, even in times of COVID, even in times when students and schools can't access our halls, our cultural venues, and invite them and try to give them an understanding of our work and the scientific and technological advancements. This is precisely also what is actually done by our host organization, by CPN, and I actually asked Peter to come on stage. Thank you so much again for hosting us, for feeling us so welcome here in Belgrade, and we are loving to come back every single time, also because you really do a fantastic program, and we see this very much here today also within the exhibition. Please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the Center for the Promotion of Science is a part of this wonderful and big program, but unlike the other partners, we are not a cultural institution. Don't do art isn't our primary thing we do. So we do science communication. This is our main part, and our focus is communicating specific scientific topics to the general public, communicating with institutions, academic institutions, even industry. And to all this, through these projects, we added artists, and artists as another layer. So I'm just going to quickly go over this. So during this, yes, as Veronika said, we met in Belgrade to start off this project at the end of 2018. So this was one of the, so you might see some familiar faces from these photos around. And so for the start of this project, we started on a Serbian-wide, let's say, a tour of promoting the project, what our vision for it was, and trying to get the message across to as many of the art schools around Serbia, also scientific institutions. So here you can see some photos of when we visited the Academy of Arts in Novi Sad and some independent cultural places around Serbia and Belgrade. So the beginning of the project was focused on securing a good network of collaborators for the next 3 years on the local scene, and one of a great activities that we organized and that proved now after some 2 years a very successful one was organizing this We Inspire You tour. So we took a whole bus, 35 people from across, starting from the very top, from representatives of the Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Science, then a lot of artists, a lot of people involved in teaching, academics, also representatives of industry and a lot of journalists also, because this is a sort of a new topic here and it wasn't covered in depth, so we thought it was nice to work with people and to have around us a good group of collaborators to follow this. So yes, so this was a 4-day tour to Linz, to Ars Electronica, when we were hosted by Veronika and her colleagues, and also to Ljubljana, to Kapelica, which is another partner of this project. Unfortunately, they're not with us today, but because they're organizing their own event in Brussels. Yes, so this is so, but the main focus of our activities is the annual Art+Science program of the center. So this started in 2016 and it's been going on till now, and now you're in the space of the exhibition of the 6th edition of this program, and the last 3 programs, manifestations, I don't know how to call them, were under the AI Lab project. So we started with Art+ Neuroscience, the Art+Science Lab last year, and the AI Realities exhibition this year. So yes, so maybe 2, yes, so this is the neuroscience. The exhibition last year was a really different program than all of them, because it was in 2020, and of course COVID was here, but we had the luck to have this September exhibition and to manage to have a physical exhibition in Belgrade, and also we were part of the Euroscience Open Forum in Trieste, so part of the exhibition was exhibited there also. So actually in this pandemic time we had 2 physical exhibitions, but we also have, because we didn't know how this was gonna happen, we had an online also virtual exhibition, so a replica of this space in KC magazine, and it's still in Mozilla Hubs, which we also use for Ars Electronica. So yes, this Euroscience Open Forum is a very important, it's a bilateral biennial conference on science communication, very important one, and the city that hosts it, so Trieste in 2020, gets this prestigious title of the European Capital of Science. So yeah, and then we come to the 3rd part. This is this year's ongoing exhibition, so maybe Tuesday. And yes, and after these 3 last events, so we have this sort of a structure that works well for us and that we got a lot. So we have the national selection. So the project, the AI Lab project, has 4 residency calls led by Ars Electronica and with different scientific institutions who are very important ones. So this, yeah, so we had in these 2 projects from CERN to, yes, very, very prestigious and very nice ones. So we try to promote these on a national level, these calls, and to encourage local artists to apply for these. The center also provides them help if they need, because the schooling here doesn't really provide artists with knowledge of budgeting their making these proposals. So we also try to help with them. So they apply to these global calls, and then we make a national local selection from these artists. Then another way of coming to these productions of the center, how we engage local artists, scientists, these transdisciplinary, is this art+science+CPN program or selection, which was started in 2019. So yeah, we'll maybe go. Then we have the National Plus selection, which we take local artists who are maybe more familiar in a global context and try to bring them and present them here, and maybe, yeah, even contextualize them in the art and science category. And of course, we have the AI Lab selection. So around you, you see a lot of works that we saw at partner festivals, and many of them were developed by some of the partner institutions. So this is the AI Lab selection. And of course, the most very important part of our programs are the parallel events, the talks, the discussions, the workshops, and conferences like this, when we try to go deeper. So we cover everything, so from school children to high school children to students at art academies, at technical universities. So yes, this is, so okay, so for this national selection, we had the first winner, Jasna Jovicevic, in 2019, 2020, Kristina Tica, and we try to match them, so they apply with their art projects, and we try to match them, and we managed to do this very successfully, with scientific institutions, so either specific scientists who can help in their work, or for the last couple of projects, we even had residencies at like laboratories or even some projects dealing in specific topics. So Jasna Jovicevic did her piece at the School of Electrical Engineering, University of Belgrade. Kristina Tica did it with the Mathematical Institute of the Serbian Academy. And this year's winner is Marko Milic, and you will have, as soon as we finish our presentations, a chance to see the performance Binema in the space. So so maybe today. And yes, this art+science+CPN selection is, I don't know, it's very dear to me. So a colleague of mine, Bojan, who is also in the audience, and I try to organize this. So this started in 2019, and aside from this different artist-led one, we try here to get a diverse group of artists, scientists, or broader spectrum of interested people in a specific topic, try to organize a number of workshops, talks, and to get them to know each other better, to start collaborating, and to present projects that then we select. We have juries also, and produce them. So for this first year, we produced 3 different works dealing with neuroscience. In 2020, we had 2 more works that were produced and presented at our 2020 festival. The first AI VI is a very interested, it's a pervasive game, a mobile app that takes you on a walk through the center of Belgrade, and at different locations opens up some interesting and very important topics surrounding AI. And this is done by a very good and strong team of 5 artists and scientists. And
last question, last sentence?
yes, and of course, yeah. So this year we also had 2 different. So from this project we have, from this selection we had 7 works that were produced within this AI Lab project, and the 3 national winners. So 10 pieces were produced. Here and here at the end you can see some photos from different workshops for different generation of kids. And at the end, just to mention our art and science platform. So we changed our annual sites for that followed our manifestations to a more general platform, and we are starting work on it, and this will be our focus at the end of the year. So yeah, I think we can finish there.
Thank you. Thank you again. Definitely a big invitation also to explore the exhibition. All the projects, or many of the projects you presented today, are part of where we are currently. So yeah, encourage you to have a look. And again, thanks for hosting us, hosting all the partners. Some are missing, also because we could not fit everyone, otherwise we would keep you probably until midnight, but there are many other partners also part of this network, in particular VAR from Amsterdam, Le Lieu Unique also from France, then we have Capelli from Slovenia, which was already mentioned, and also Science Gallery Dublin, and many, many other scientific partners, because one thing is really important to mention: we don't do this alone as culture organizations. We really heavily rely actually on the collaborations with international scientific institutions and of course the national ones, and the model CPN is following is a fantastic one to also pair artists really specifically for the creation with national scientific institutions. We also do this in the context of the residency to open up the doors also of AI research and technology organizations for artists, let them engage with the scientists directly and let them also discuss and get into fights maybe, or exchange ideas on the developments of AI together. This is also something we do, and we, in this context, is Kristina, a colleague from Electronica, who will actually jump into the details of what we did and still do at Electronica.
Thank you very much, Veronika. I'm super delighted to be here today with all of our partners, discussing everything that we've all together been doing within the framework of the AI Lab for the past almost 4 years by now. So I'm very happy to be here now to talk a little bit more about what Electronica has actually been doing in the context of the European Artificial Intelligence Lab. So Veronika in the beginning briefly introduced us already, so that you also have an image in your mind. This is our home base, the Electronica Center, that exists since the mid-1990s. And as mentioned, we're a platform at the nexus of art, science, art, society, and technology since 1979. Through the Electronica Festival that has been bringing together artists, scientists, researchers, activists, and really the general public to discuss the implications of technology on our daily lives, how it's affecting us, how it's affecting our environments, and how are we dealing with those technologies and reflecting them. The Electronica does this through quite a few different departments. The Electronica Center is, as I said, our home base that is focused on mediating art and technology to especially also the younger generations, to schools, school children, teachers, but also the general public and families who are interested in diving into the topic of technology. The Ars Electronica Festival every year brings together a critical mass of artists and researchers and the general public discussing all of these topics. And we also have the Ars Electronica Future Lab, our R&D lab, and the U19 Create Your World Festival that brings all of these topics into really the hands and into the area of the youngest generation from 0 to 19 who are already also working with technologies and reflecting on them. And these are also kind of the parts of Ars Electronica where the artificial intelligence lab showed up mostly, and where really a lot of our programs and formats came together. And I think the important thing about Ars Electronica is that we never look at technology as a vacuum, but it's really always how do we develop it, how do we use it, and how are we planning to use it maybe also in more empathic and sustainable ways in the future. And I would say that's really also what's been driving how we have been curating and developing the programs within the European Artificial Intelligence Lab. So there we were, of course, reflecting really on how AI is currently used in governance, in public spaces, in civil society, in our work environments, in our daily lives, through the devices that we are using. But of course also we were focusing very much on the idea to demystify AI. So to talk with our audiences, with the general public about the fact that it's not something that is kind of working on its own and being like an entity that is not governed by us humans. So we are the ones programming AI, we are the ones designing it, so we also have the responsibility to reflect on how we use it and how we want to apply it. And that's really what we've been reflecting on in the context of the AI Lab through capacity building programs, through workshops, through exhibitions, through residencies, conferences and lectures. And many of our partners have already discussed their own residencies today, and they are also really one of the heart pieces of the AI Lab in Ars Electronica's own programs. So we were really lucky, as Veronika was also mentioning, just to work together with fantastic institutions. The Muntref Centro de Arte y Ciencia and the Laboratorio de Neurociencia, so of Neuroscience of the University Torquato di Tella in Buenos Aires. That's quite a mouthful. The Edinburgh Futures Institute, and specifically the experiential AI cluster there, the Leiden Observatory that is focusing kind of on the view outside towards the skies, and in very much the same vein, the SETI Institute based in California in the US, who are kind of exploring the possibility of extraterrestrial life. So the residencies that we hosted together with the scientists of these fantastic institutions and also with the Ars Electronica Future Lab, where we invited artists through open calls to participate, were really guided also by the research topics of these institutions. So the artists had the opportunity to, some of them in person because the residency happened before COVID, some of them through online participation, work with the scientists and develop a number of fantastic pieces that were all shown this year at the Ars Electronica Festival. So Anna Ridler and Caroline Sinders presented Cypress Trees, a beginning, where they are still in the process of creating a data set working with cypress trees native to Louisiana in an area that is being hugely affected by the surrounding oil industries and industries, and where the trees are currently in the process of becoming extinct. So they are now in this project, Cypress Trees, a beginning, creating a data set of these trees, archiving them, and also referencing the fact that while the trees themselves might not be in our physical world soon, there will still be an archive and a data set, a massive one of these trees in digital version that can maybe even in the future be used to, with generative adversarial networks to create new trees. So they are really questioning the idea of the archives we are creating, the data sets that we are creating, and also how those relate to the physical representation in the real world. Then we have Sarah Petkus and Mark Koch, who have developed together with Leiden Observatory the piece Moon Rabbit, and there they are training a battery of AI children to read the stars. So they've been training neural networks in different ways, with different approaches, to find shapes in the constellations in the sky. And their work is really a beautiful example of how we are training AI neural networks, how we are affecting the training process. They very specifically also reflect on the fact that they used very different approaches. Sarah, a very erratic one and creative one, and Mark, who is the technical person and researcher in this pairing, a very strict and principled one. And they were kind of trying to find out how will this affect the neural network. So we can also see the kind of impact we have on the design of the networks. And then we have also The Wandering Mind by Gershon Dublon and Xin Liu, who have created a AI-driven performance network that they have fed with thousands of sounds, and they are exploring the idea of meditative soundscapes and environments that can get people to meditate and to sleep. And we have the Codex Virtualis project by Interspecifics, a collective based mostly in Mexico, but also across Europe and other parts of the world, who have created an archive of potential extraterrestrial beings that don't exist through data sets that they received, among others, from the SETI Institute. So they are exploring the speculative scenario of creating organisms that don't exist through using AI models. And I think that all of these works really show this kind of unpeeling of AI through different technologies that we really focus on in the whole European Artificial Intelligence Lab. So all of the works really get us thinking about how the technology works, and but they do it in a very empathic way and in a way that's also approachable for a general audience to really start understanding maybe how we create data sets, how computer vision works by looking at an entity that's looking at the night sky and seeing some shapes that aren't even there. So I think that's something that all of the residencies really bring together. Jumping into another part of our program, the Ars Electronica Journeys. So that is something that we took on in the past year as the pandemic kicked off, and we started thinking about how can we bring in our artists into the Ars Electronica Festival to reflect on their artistic practice, to give us an insight into their work. And so we came to kind of the conclusion to work with them on filmic pieces where they don't necessarily introduce a specific artwork, but they really talk about their practice. And we have, over the past 2 years, within the framework of the European Artificial Intelligence Lab, commissioned 22 artists who were all sharing through films from 4 minutes to 30 minutes how they are working with AI technologies, how they are using AI models in their own artistic practice, but also getting us thinking about some of the critical questions that we should be asking ourselves. So these films, these 22 pieces, can all be viewed online. So they are basically in a mediathek available for everybody to watch at any point, which we of course encourage you to do. And they really, much like the image you can see here from How to Strand Astronauts on the Moon, this is a really fantastic example of a journey where the two artists, Halsey Bergand and Francesca Panetta, they collaborated together to really understand how deepfake technology works. So they both, before they started working on their work in Event of Moon Disaster, didn't really know much about this technology but wanted to explore it. So they created a fictional scenario in which the moon landing in 1969 had actually gone wrong. And they used a speech by Richard Nixon that he never actually gave to have an actor deliver it, and then made a deep fake so that it looked like Richard Nixon was giving a speech about the failed moon landing. And through this, really showing how general adversarial networks are working, how deepfake technology is working, and also creating a massive online archive around this. And these things they all explore in their journey. This is really what the journeys are doing, showing us through the voices of the artists how they are using AI technologies. One last sentence, okay. Because I need to wrap up, I will wrap up the rest of what I wanted to talk about in one sentence. We explored within the AI Lab also a lot of conference programs with fantastic researchers and artists. We had the very great pleasure of working with all of our wonderful partners over the last 2 years through an online program, the Ars Electronica Gardens, where many of the partners here in the network hosted programs focused on AI, both in online, in hybrid, and in physical form, that were part of the Ars Electronica Festival. And of course, we also explored everything that we've been discussing over the past 1.5 hours in a number of fantastic exhibitions in the Ars Electronica Festival and the Ars Electronica Center, where really all of the pieces, I think, often explore this question of how we can unpeel AI very much like an onion, as, for example, the piece Anatomy of an AI System does, that you can also see in the exhibition just around the corner. So, wrapping up now. Thanks to everybody for having us today. Yeah, I think we are super happy to be here and to hear everybody share about their programs.
Thank you. As always, time is too short, or as always, our programs are far too extensive to actually present them in 1.5 hours. That's why please have a look at our catalog. We just produced a really extensive catalog with all the artistic works and with all the programs in it from the last 3 years, which gives a fantastic picture also of the practice of artificial intelligence and art, and shows also what has been done. But before you actually leave and of course immediately look into the catalog, we have one last presentation from Zaragoza, from Etopia, and I would ask Blanca to come on stage. Hello, yes.
Hello everyone. I just had a lot of trouble with the conversion from the keynote to PowerPoint, so it's a PDF. I work at Etopia, which is a Center for Art and Technology based in Zaragoza, north of Spain. We can go one. You can also. Oh, I'm not sure because it's a PDF. Yeah. So we are based in the north of Spain. It's a center. We have a big residency and quite important educational program. And for this AI lab, we have produced 2 exhibitions that have happened in 2021, and 3 artistic residencies and 2 summer schools for forums of discussion about AI and ethics. The first one produced the Declaration of Zaragoza, which is a very easy 5-point, that wake you up. 5-point declaration in which we synthesize the think about what AI should be for a better future. So technologies must be socially and environmentally responsible. Traceability and testability are essential elements of any AI technologies. Fundamental rights cannot be limited by AI. Technologies that cannot be explained or via methods that are not reproducible. Teams that develop AI technologies should be transdisciplinary, integrating techno-scientific and humanistic knowledge. And finally, the development of any AI technologies must adhere to a deontological code of social responsibility for professionals and companies that respect the previous points. So it was a workshop with thinkers and artists and technologists and philosophers that give us that declaration that is available on the internet, and I think it's a very straightforward way of getting into AI and ethics. Nope. Okay. Well, that was a video of the first resident, Monica Ricic. She's from Barcelona, but Serbian origins. She's an artist that works with robotics, always in a playful way, and that's her with her piece at the exhibition. This is the second residency, was by two artists, Sofia Crespo and Felica McCormick. He comes from Denmark and she's from Argentina, but they are based in Germany. And this is one of the artists we share works with Onassis, for instance. They created an imaginary, a world imagined by AI, and then our work was to put that ideas into the physical realm with 3D printing, and that also have tested biomaterials for 3D printing and things like that during the residency, but all those remotely. Third resident was Aratia Capelli. She's an artist based in New York. She works at the Parsons Schools. And she worked with a very specific database. The piece was created using all Goya's, Francisco de Goya's sketching collection. So that constituted the set where she trained the algorithm using that and produced a series of engravings. And it was a very interesting way of working because we saw that the work of Goya really had a resonance with this algorithmic aesthetics, dreamy, and you could feel, because Goya is from Zaragoza, everyone getting in the exhibition room really saw, oh, that's Goya, and then when you get closer, of course, this is completely abstract. But that was a really nice touch, and people really, if you see it, it's not a figurative piece at all, but kind of the essence is there, and that was very interesting, and also was a piece that, at least for us, was very easy with the public, because they could say things straight away from it. That's the artist of the exhibition, the entire artist that we have shared, because there are not that many artists doing things with AI. So the art was like, for instance, Patrick Treset that you have on the background is also being with us for this exhibition, because with another series, but he's been also there. And that you see the installation, how Patrick Treset was on the Etopia, and also in the first, you can see Arati's work. That is Anna Ridla, which is another piece. She's been also, I don't know how many exhibitions, Anna. Maybe we should raise the hand how many places she's been. But she was presenting a piece that she had created in 2020, thanks to a grant of Google. She made a film with AI, and the fact that she got that grant from Google allowed her to use this huge computational power. The issue with AI, one of the things that we see in the declaration is the amount of energy it uses for training those algorithms. And now we are going into a very important energetical crisis. This is something it is important to bear in mind. Those things are not carbon neutral, and put that in perspective with using explaining to just train a 6-minute film, the amount of energy that you need to use, etc. So that is also a thing to bear in mind. There's more examples of the exhibition. Here you have in the background Libby Heaney, which is a very interesting UK-based artist that she works with quantum computing and also feminism. And she, in the background, she created a deep fake that she's put her face into Elvis old movies and vice versa. Then stripped faces with Elvis, and it is an interrogation of the questions of gender and presumptions about who is who, and it's very interesting work. And then also you have Mario Klingemann, based in Munich, is also one of the pioneers working with a particular strain of artificial intelligence with these deep neural networks, which it seems that is the only AI that exists, but actually there are many others. But Mario was one of the pioneers because it's a technique that has been hugely successful, but only exists since 2014. But artists really adopted very early, and now we are seeing a lot of artworks using that technique of generative adversarial networks, and Mario is one of the pioneers. There was another video, but it's a PDF, so sorry. There's more videos of the workshop created with Monica because we have a very comprehensive educational program. That's the second exhibition, which is Imagine Architecture. So Professor Simon Coulton is a professor at the University of London, and he created a series of imagined buildings, and we just did an exhibition in the media facade of Etopia. That also was a video, more videos that can be played. And that was the final Zaragoza garden. And I think I've run enough, so you can, please, can we, yes, that will be, just put in the third link. Will be enough. The third link, which is the first video. No, not this one, the third one, please. Yeah. This is a quick video of the exhibition at Etopia. So the subtitles and is in Spanish, but there's not much dialogue.
Tenemos robots en casa para que nos pongan música, para cocinar o para limpiar.
They tried to do something with the television, tried to do something that was funny. It was just trying to have this very complicated exhibition explained by a child. At some point it was successful, at some points not so much. But it's good television.
La visión es lo mismo que la mirada. Una concha. Porque tiene como bordes raros. Esta es una tortuga. Ah, no. Una concha también. Dos caballitos de mar. Porque hay una cara y otra.
Pieces were generated using different techniques of AI. This one is a simple generative process, but it's a live video generation by Ian Goldstone. This is the most photographic and cinematographic piece, so they really spend a lot of time filming that one. It's a bit jealous for the other artists because that was just the one that was taking all the attention. Sofia and Feileken. That one too, from Mario.
Una persona. Esto es mosquito. Estamos explorando el espacio latente. Esto se inspira en cómo trabaja nuestro cerebro para conseguir una imagen. Ya se parece más. Se está hablando la cosa.
That was the machine that wanted to be uncompatible from Monica Ricek. It is a very funny piece that gets upset because she wants to be something what humans want it to be something that she cannot be, and she has like an existential crisis, and when everyone gets close to it, it starts shouting, and her breath accelerates, and it's interesting the way that people react to it, because with just the movement of the breathing as a soft robot, people start putting lots of things into it. That is Patrick. Perhaps we can stop it here, really, the video. We can stop it here. And perhaps 1 minute, and so the colonists, the summer camp, and so they can see Etopia a bit, is 1 minute. Yeah, or not? We don't have time. It's brief. It's just a minute video. Yeah. So can we see the last video, please? The last link, please. So this is our summer school for children. We have it every year, and for the third year in a row, we have several workshops inspired or about AI. We have children over summer for about 7 weeks, and this year we had like 10 different itineraries, meaning different types of workshops. We have photography, digital art, cinema, automatic cars, astronomy, yeah. So for the last 3 years, at least 3 of the itineraries were about AI for kids from 6 to 14. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we all got, and you got a fantastic insight into the activities we realized, and we also are going to realize in the next month and years together. There is not so much left to say besides really inviting you, either if you're online or here on site, just to get in touch with us, to maybe also get in touch with us to explore some possibilities to get engaged in the programs, to work with us, to also see how we are developing as a partner consortium. So definitely online and also here on site within the next hours. We will jump into the next programs with a performance program in 10 minutes. And this will be then also followed by a panel discussion on AI and art. So please join us again for the outcomes, the artistic outcomes of the European Artificial Intelligence Lab, and also then some deeper discussions on artificial intelligence and art. Thank you so much.